Israel is barring two Muslim congresswomen from entering the country after pressure from President Trump. Congresswomen Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib had planned to visit Israel this weekend. The country says it's blocking them for their support of a Palestinian-led boycott movement. The two have also criticized Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and are frequent targets of President Trump. We're going to have more on this story later in the hour, but first I want to turn to the 2020 race. President Trump is headed to New Hampshire tonight, and as one Democratic candidate is expected to pull out of the race, another one restarts his campaign. Former Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper is expected to suspend his bid for the presidency. He had yet to meet the requirements for September's debate. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has been pushing for Hickenlooper for a possible Senate run against Republican Cory Gardner. Meanwhile, former Texas Congressman Beto O'Rourke announced he's relaunching his campaign. He spent the last 2 weeks in his hometown of El Paso, Texas, where 22 people were killed in a mass shooting. In his speech, O'Rourke blamed President Trump's rhetoric for the attack, which is believed to be racially motivated against Hispanics.
I want to make clear to you, to us, to the country, that what he says and what he does not just offend our sensibilities or our understanding of the traditions of this great country. It changes who we are as a country. We must take the fight directly to the source of this problem, that person who has caused this pain and placed this country in this moment of peril, and that is Donald Trump.
Ken Thomas covers the 2020 Democrats for the Wall Street Journal, and he joins me now. So, Ken, we just got word. It's official. Hickenlooper has officially dropped out, as we've been expecting this morning. So why now?
His campaign just was unable to make any traction in the race. He'd been running for a few months and hadn't been able to raise much money. He was not going to qualify for the Houston debates. And at the same time, he's been under a lot of pressure by Democrats like Chuck Schumer and others to run for the Senate race. Cory Gardner, the Republican there, is considered among the most vulnerable Republicans in 2020. And Hickenlooper, is a former mayor of Denver, former governor. He's somebody who could unite the party and bring in some of the moderate Republicans in the state. And so they just feel like he has a better chance running for the Senate than continuing on with the presidential campaign that just doesn't seem to be going anywhere.
And we just heard Beto O'Rourke this morning, his so-called relaunch of his campaign, a very forceful speech directly criticizing taking the president full on. Is this really a departure from his previous strategy?
They're trying to let Beto be Beto, I would say. He is going to not be chained to states like Iowa and New Hampshire, and they're going to send him to places that, he has a visceral connection to, places that have been affected by gun violence or places with large immigrant communities who are, feeling the heat of the president's rhetoric and policies. And, if you look at his schedule, he's going to be in Arkansas and Mississippi. Those are hardly places you go if you're a Democrat running for president, but they just feel like he needs to have the opportunity to reboot, start over, and see if he can make a go of it. He, unlike Hickenlooper, is not going to run for the Senate. He continues to, will continue to press on. People like John McCain in 2007, John Kerry in 2003 were able to come back after big setbacks early on, but we'll see, how Beto goes.
So we know this issue of gun control is really personal to O'Rourke, after the shooting occurred in his hometown of El Paso. Do you expect him to keep gun control as really a defining issue for him throughout this campaign?
Absolutely. And it's interesting, when he first launched his campaign, he spoke passionately about climate change being, the definitive issue. And now, after this shooting in El Paso, his hometown, it's going to be the issue he's going to drive forward, most likely, even more so perhaps than immigration. The problem in this field, though, is there are so many candidates still. There are 23 people running for president, and a lot of these candidates have taken on issues like guns or immigration and the things that he's going to focus on. So it's going to be hard for him to really own an issue just himself. And so we'll see how this strategy pans out.
I want to ask you about the president as well. We mentioned earlier at the top of the hour he's going to be holding a rally in New Hampshire tonight. What do you think his messaging will be?
Well, New Hampshire is one of those states that Republicans would like to try to put in their column next year. President Trump only lost to Hillary Clinton there by a few thousand votes, and it's going to be a tougher map for him this time. And so they would like to try to make New Hampshire work. The problem is he's been underwater there for months, and even there are a lot of voters there who will still give him credit on the economy, but it's still not helping him overall. So we're going to see a counter rally by some of the supporters of Joe Biden beforehand. The other interesting wrinkle we'll probably see tonight is that the president is going to encourage Corey Lewandowski, who was his campaign manager, to run for Senate against Jean Shaheen. She's one of the Senate Democrats who Republicans would like to target next year.
One of the messages the president keeps touting in these rallies is the strong economy as the biggest reason to reelect him, and it has some resonance. We saw, though, some weakness in the approach yesterday. The Dow fell more than 800 points amid fears of a recession. The president has delayed tariffs on China, as he said, to prevent them from hurting U.S. consumers. If those warnings grow louder, how do you think Democrats are going to approach the economy?
Rena, if there's a week that's crystallized the economy as an effective argument for Democrats, it's this week. I think they feel like his trade policies, the tariffs, are really starting to hit people in their pocketbooks, starting to hurt farmers in Iowa, starting to hurt manufacturers in the Midwest and in some of the Rust Belt states. And so I think you're going to see a much more focused argument on the president's stewardship of the economy and why, in their view, his economic policies aren't working. And this is a danger zone. I think White House advisors will quietly admit that, if you start getting to the point where the economy could be moving into a recession in an election year, that could be a serious setback for the president seeking re-election. It's hurt incumbents in the past.
And Ken, as we've heard, we're talking about the economy all day yesterday afternoon, and we keep hearing that the indicators could be anywhere from months to 2 years if the recession were to happen. So it's not like the president can predict the timing on this. He continues, though, to express confidence in the economy, even tweeting out saying that the United States is now by far the biggest, strongest, and most powerful economy in the world. It is not even close. As others falter, we will only get stronger. Consumers are in the best shape ever, plenty of cash. Business optimism is at an all-time high. So if the economy does weaken, do you think the president has to change his entire campaign message?
It's going to be hard. I mean, he can talk about the growth that they've had up to this point. They can talk about a strong stock market. He has used the stock market really as like his scorecard in a way. But if consumer spending starts to decline around the holidays, if we see more of an impact from these tariffs in the spring, it's going to be a tougher case for the president to make on his economic leadership. And it's something that Democrats feel that they can reach out to voters on, that the economy may be strong for people who are wealthy, but it hasn't really improved for a lot of people who are more in the middle class realm.
When we talk to voters in Iowa, we keep hearing from our campaign reporters about how Democrats want to put forward a candidate who can really win against Donald Trump. We know Joe Biden is also going to be holding a rally tonight. He's pitching a one-on-one battle with the president. Does that resonate with voters?
Well, the Biden campaign feels like it's their best strategy, that he has an electability threshold that's unmatched at this point, that he can make the case that he's strong in states like Pennsylvania and Michigan and Wisconsin, the places that were critical to the president's election in 2016. The trouble with that is that the moment your electability bubble bursts or you look weak, as he has at times in some of these debates, it's going to give some Democrats, a reason to pause. And so that's why the next debate in Houston next month will be an important one for Joe Biden. He'll need to show strength. He's had some gaffes of late that, have drawn some questions and raised concerns. He's taking some time off of the trail. We're going to see him in Iowa next week, New Hampshire next week. And so, they're continuing to try to just plow ahead and make this argument that he is the Democrat who is best positioned to beat President Trump.
All right, Ken Thomas with the Wall Street Journal. Ken, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Rena.